My name is Barb, and I am an advocate and educator for Shark for Kids. I'm very honored to be part of this fantastic organization. I have lived in Florida all my life. So the ocean has been very, very important to me from the time I was a kid to becoming a scuba diver as an adult. Now, once I became a scuba diver, I was able to enjoy this fantastic undersea world that we have, but it also enlightened me on the fact that it needs to be protected and it needs to be studied. That is why I am so very excited today to introduce you to Ashlan Cousteau. I have followed Ashlan's career for so long, and I love it because she is either off on some kind of adventure or having fun. But the most important part of it is she is educating people on how important it is to protect our environment and how important it is to learn about it. We can't love something, as someone very famous once said, if we don't know what it is. So if you love it, you want to protect it. Ashlan wears many hats. She is a journalist for several networks. She is a speaker. She is a filmmaker. She is obviously an environmental advocate. She is an explorer who has trekked across all 7 continents, and I am sure has racked up several frequent flyer miles in the process. She is a TV host. One of my favorite shows was Caribbean Pirate Treasures. I got to vicariously look for sunken treasures off the coast of Florida and the Caribbean with she and her husband Felix. It was a lot of fun. And in 2016, they hosted a show during Shark Week called Nuclear Sharks. It was their #1 cable show that year, and it was fantastic. I would highly suggest that if you get a chance to go back and look at it, you will love it and learn so very much. Recently, they have written a book called Oceans for Dummies. Oh, look who has one, me. This book is great because it teaches the average person so much about the ocean and how it actually affects our daily lives, from our environment to our food sources, to the air that we breathe, the animals that live in it. It's just fantastic. Together, they are a power couple for the environment. And I am so very honored to introduce to you mom, new mom to be. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Ashlan. So I can't wait to hear everything you have to say. Thank you for being here with us, Ashlan.
Thank you so much. And just thank you so much to Sharks for Kids for inviting me to be able to chat with you all. This is the highlight of my week, and I really appreciate it. So I am going to share my screen. Let's see if I do it correctly.
Yes.
Let's see. Oh, and I think Philippe is already helping me with that. Enter IT Philippe.
What do we do without our IT husband, right?
Exactly. Thank goodness. Okay. Okay, great. Well, thank you. So, thank you, sweetheart. I appreciate it. So yes, hi everyone. Thanks again for joining. So I am, as Barb said, Ashlan Gorse Cousteau. I wear many, many hats. I'm a journalist, I'm an author, I'm an ocean advocate, and I am a shark lover. And I really wanted to take you all on kind of my journey for purpose, because I think that's really important in this day and age. So I started off my career as an entertainment journalist. And for 7 years, I was a fill-in anchor and correspondent for E! News. So I got to interview every single celebrity under the sun. I covered the Golden Globes, the Oscars, the new music that was coming out, celebrity news. And truly, it was an amazing time in my life and my dream career. Then I met a gentleman one evening, right after the BP oil spill. This man came to talk about what was happening and what was happening to the oil and to the ocean and the animals that called it home. And it was from then that I realized that not only did I really respect this person, but I loved him. So I met my person, or I met my lobster, as people like to say. And Philippe and I started dating, and he has, he comes from a generation, 3 generations of ocean advocates, ocean conservationists, and ocean explorers. And while I was still working at E! And in the entertainment world, I was starting to learn about this new ocean world that we had. And I started getting more and more intrigued because the more I learned, the more I wanted to learn more. And my 30th birthday was coming up, and Philippe asked what I would like for my birthday. And I said, you know, I would really like to go diving with great white sharks. And he was very excited to hear this because I'm sure he was afraid I was going to ask for some crazy gift. But instead, I asked for a kind of crazy gift, but in his world. So for my 30th birthday, we went down to Mexico, we hopped on a boat, and we went off the coast of Mexico to Guadalupe Island. And this is where great white sharks come every seal pupping season, because I love seals, but sharkies love to eat seals, and I love sharks. So we went down to Guadalupe Island, and we spent about 3 days there diving every single day, on cages in the back, on a cage that went down to about 60 feet. And it was there that I really got to see these incredible, beautiful, graceful animals. And it's one thing to see a shark from the surface. It's a completely different experience to see a shark eye to eye, to see a shark in their own world. And I had this one time where a female great white, because the fun thing about great whites and most sharks specifically is that the girls are bigger than the boys. So this big mama comes over. She was about 17 feet long, and they're so huge around, like the girth of them. They look like submarines in the water. And she came right up. It's this picture up here. She came by a couple times. I think she liked me. So the next time she came by, she came right next to the cage, and our eyes met, and we just stared at each other for what felt like eternity. But we just stared at each other for probably about 30 seconds. That was the first time I realized that sharks have pupils, so their eyes look very similar to ours. And it was really one of the first times in my life that I had an encounter with an animal where I really felt like they understood me and I understood them. And it was from that point on that I decided that I needed to use my knowledge as a storyteller and my gifts as a storyteller to really talk to people about how incredible sharks are, because not only are they gorgeous and fast and the perfect apex predators, but they also keep our oceans healthy. They keep marine species healthy by eating the sick or the weak or the dying, to kind of get them out of the gene pool. But another thing that we've recently figured out about sharks, like whales, they're incredible carbon sinks. So they will actually eat animals and take their carbon that's been stored in them. And then when they poop out the rest, they use it into energy and poop, and that poop sinks down, sequestering the carbon into the ocean. So I realized that more people needed to know about sharks. More people needed to know about the importance of our ocean. And so during quarantine, I was able to sit down and write a book all about the ocean, Oceans for Dummies, because I realized that there really wasn't any book out there that made learning about the ocean and how complex it is easy and fun. So throughout the book, we break down everything from how the ocean was formed to the species that live in it, to the green, to the blue economy, ocean management, the law of the sea. Everything is all in that one book. But what I wanted to also talk to you all about today is, because I love sharks, we can't have healthy sharks without a healthy ocean. But also, we can't have a healthy planet without a healthy ocean, and therefore we can't have healthy people without a healthy ocean. So I know a lot of you have probably learned about this at school, which is so exciting, but I also just wanted to go through with it again and kind of give you my take on it. So why should we care about the ocean, right? Well, for one, our planet shouldn't be called Earth. It should probably be called ocean, because the ocean covers over 70% of our planet. Our ocean supplies food to billions of people around our planet. Our ocean controls our climate and our weather. It also produces almost all the rainfall that falls on land. That water originated in the ocean. So if you like to eat food, that was grown by the water from the ocean. And also oxygen. You know, the ocean produces over 50% of the available ocean in our atmosphere, which is incredible. So some people say even 2 out of every 3 breaths technically comes from the sea. So as you can tell, you know, our ocean, even if you live in the middle of the country, even if you live in the middle of a desert and even if you've never seen the ocean before, the ocean influences you and your life every single day, every single moment of every single day. But the problem is this ocean that we all rely upon, all of us, meaning all species on Earth, it is in trouble. I'm 40. I just turned 40 this year. And I know that probably sounds old to most of you, but just in the past 40 years, we've lost 50% of the global biodiversity on this planet. 50%, that's crazy. The ocean also is warming up. It's getting hotter because it has actually absorbed 90% of the excess heat that has been put into the atmosphere. The ocean's absorbed it almost kind of like a giant solar panel, which is good for us, but bad for the ocean because that means ocean temperatures are rising. We also have pollution. I know all of you have heard about the plastic pollution in the ocean. About more than 100 million tons of plastic enters the ocean, is in the ocean, and about 80 million metric tons enters the ocean every single day. That's one garbage truck full of plastic dumping it into the ocean every single minute. And that's a lot, and that affects us and all the animals that live in the sea. And overfishing. Right now, scientists are estimating that about 90% of all of the fish stocks around the world are either fished at capacity or are overfished. So us humans, we're really fishing ourselves out of fish. And if we're fishing ourselves out of fish, we're also fishing all the other creatures in the sea that rely on that seafood, like sharks. But the good news is I want you all to know that there's hope. We face a lot of problems, but there are so many things that we can do to fix this. And you all, the youth of the world, you're not the leaders of tomorrow, you are the leaders of today. And I want you to know that. If you take away nothing from this talk, take away that sharks are really cool and that you yourself, you can change the world. And I wanted to show you guys a video of when we went to Bikini Atoll. This is where I saw for the first time the power that the ocean has to regenerate.
Bikini Atoll, a remote South Pacific paradise, lost in time. Then, in 1946, this faraway coral atoll became a nuclear test site. Over the next 12 years, 23 atomic tests wiped out every living thing for miles around. 60 years later, Bikini is still radioactive.
Waking up.
And I don't want to spend too much time there.
But life abounds in unexpected ways.
They're keyed in, they know that we're here.
The sharks are back.
Now!
But how is a mystery. Reef sharks don't migrate. So where do they come from? And how did they get here?
Right now we have about a dozen sharks feeding.
Ashlan and Felix Cousteau
Yeah, man, let's do it.
are on an expedition to solve the mystery of Bikini's nuclear sharks.
So first and foremost, the scene on the back of the boat where I have a giant spear, I was surface tagging a shark. I was surface tagging her with a satellite tag so we could find out where she was going. And what was so interesting was, after we humans had detonated nuclear bombs, 23 nuclear bombs on these tiny little islands, everything evaporated, everything died within a few miles of the blast site. And when we went back 60 years later, we went back because we kept hearing these stories about how the sharks had come back and were repopulating. And what's super cool about that is sharks as apex predators, which means they're at the top of the food chain, if they're healthy, that's a key indication that the entire ecosystem that's below them, or the entire ecosystem that supports them, is healthy. So when we went to Bikini Atoll and we went diving for the very first time, I remember it was the most beautiful sight I had ever seen. So to think this area went from everything was dead, no coral, no fish, no sharks, and if any people were in the area too, they died. So after 60 years, when I went underwater, I thought I was just going to see wasteland. But instead, what I saw was that most healthy ecosystem I had ever seen. There were 70 gray reef sharks surrounding us. There were fish that were the size of my Siberian husky. There were giant clams that were about 3 or 4 feet wide. The coral was healthy and beautiful and thriving. And I remember thinking to myself, oh, is my mask leaking? But I realized that it wasn't my mask leaking. I was crying because it was so beautiful. And I'd always been taught that the ocean and that nature is resilient. And if you gave it a chance, it could come back. But it wasn't until that dive that I saw it with my own eyes. And I saw the power of the ocean and the power of these incredible species to not just come back, but to be abundant and to thrive. And that's what makes me really excited. Because, oops, sorry guys. Because marine protected areas work. So a marine protected area is an area that's set aside and no one really is allowed to do anything to it. You know, no fishing, no drilling, no dumping trash, just let it be. And as I talked about those big problems that our ocean is facing, pollution, acidification, warming, and overfishing, the good news is that marine protected areas can work. And if we set aside these very specific biodiversity hotspots to just be and go on about as normal, they will come back and they will thrive. And there's a big push right now, because I know a bunch of you want to know how you can help. There's a big push right now to save 30% of our ocean by 2030, and it's called 30 by 30. And if we can do this, and if we can implement these marine protected areas, you know, we can get more fish. We'll be able to have climate resilience. There'll be more jobs for people and more income. And that's what's so exciting is there's bad things, there is bad news, but it's so hopeful, and there are things that you guys can do. And again, as the leaders of today, that is what I want you to take away from this talk is you have the power to make a difference. My husband runs a nonprofit called Earth Echo International, and it really works with youth and empowers them to make changes and help build a sustainable and thriving ocean planet. But what's great is no matter how old you are, you can get involved. And remember that, like me, I'm not a scientist. I didn't go to school to be a scientist. I went to school to be a journalist and to be a storyteller. And so that's how I use my power to talk about the ocean, to talk about sharks and how cool and incredible they are. And it's really important to remember that no matter what you end up doing with your life, you know, what career you end up taking, what career path you end up choosing, you can always use your passion and love for the ocean or for the planet or for endangered species or for clean water. And you can empower yourself and put that into your storytelling, because every single one of you is a storyteller. You're a storyteller among your friends and your parents, and you're a storyteller among your teachers and your school and your politicians. So just remember that even though sometimes you may feel, or sometimes adults may tell you that you're just a kid, and when you're older, you can fix that. Don't listen to them. you can fix it today. And that's what's so exciting. And I just wanted you all to kind of hear that, feel that, know how much power you have, and really, in whatever path you do, put your passion towards it. So that is what, and be a shark lover, because we all need to love sharks, because their show is so important for our ocean.
Everybody loves sharks.
First and foremost, love sharks. and really see them. One of the things in the book that I talk about is, I most of you guys on this call love sharks, and that's why you're here. But if any of your friends ask you why do you love sharks? They're scary or they're dangerous. I did almost a whole chapter of the book on how sharks have so much more to fear from us than we do of them. And because of fishing practices and overfishing and thing called bycatch, which is when big fishing fleets go out to fish for a certain species, they end up catching a lot of other things as well. And a lot of sharks a lot of sharks end up getting caught in that. And so, just know that there's usually only just a few little shark attacks every once in a while. But every year, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of sharks are losing their lives. And a fun fact that I always tell people is, you're more likely to get knocked on the head by a coconut than you are getting hurt by a shark. So if ever anybody says you're afraid of sharks, you should tell them they should be more afraid of coconuts.
I agree. Being in the Bahamas and having lots of coconut trees all around,
Exactly.
yes, I've seen it. Luckily, I'm going to knock on wood saying, but yeah, it definitely, it happens.
Yeah.
And it's just, the more people share stories and their experiences too, is for people to see you in the water doing this and they can connect and relate to that. A big thing that we do with Sharks for Kids is our team shares their experience, whether it's diving or researching, and just for kids to see that people like them are doing this, it's possible. And also real people. I know they see it in books and magazines and things like that, but when you're talking to a person who can show that to you, I think it definitely, really helps you understand that you can have a connection and that
Exactly.
you do this too, and real people are doing it. So.
Yeah, and looking over at the hammerhead over our shoulder. Another time we went diving with the great hammerheads in the Bahamas, and it was so incredible to see what I think is the weirdest looking animal on the planet is a hammerhead. I mean, they're so funny looking, and they're huge, but they're so calm, and they were coming just right up to us and just checking us out and doing like zoom bys, and it was so fun, honestly, to just be in the water with them and to just see that they have different personalities, that some are a little shy, some are a little more adventurous, and I swear I have seen sharks smile. I've been on multiple dives in different countries. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've been with sharks in the water, probably over 40 or maybe even 50 dives with sharks. And so you'll just, every once in a while, you'll see a cute little shark swim by, and it gives you like a head nod and a smile. It's the funnest thing. They're absolutely incredible creatures.
Yeah, well, I have to agree. I know hammerheads are weird, but I think, and I don't know if you were here in Bimini diving with them, but obviously, yeah. So I'm really lucky that that's my backyard. So I get to spend a lot of time with these animals, and I could talk about great hammerheads and my love for them and my love for individuals. I get it. And I'm sorry, guys, everyone, my daughter is as wild. She loves hammerheads too. She's been lucky to be out and see them. She's not in the water yet, but she's seen them. And they're magical. They're incredible. So, all right. Well, we do have some questions.
This is my favorite part. So everyone, please, please, please ask questions, because otherwise I'll just keep talking, which is great, but I'd rather talk about your questions.
So
if I could just say one thing real quick.
Oh yeah.
Ashland, I think it's great in your book. In chapter 24, you talk about ways that you can actually help preserve the ocean. And I think it's important because a lot of times we hear what we should do, but not necessarily how to do it. And I think that's kind of the breaking point for a lot of people. They're like, well, I know I should do certain things, but I'm not quite sure how to do it. So that's what I liked. You actually gave examples of things that you could actually do to help, preserve the ocean and protect it.
Yeah, Barbara, thank you. That's a good point. Some of the things are really little and some of the things are really big. One thing that we always like to tell people is every decision that you make makes a difference, whether it's a good or bad. So every time you try to make a decision, try to make a better choice for our planet and specifically for our ocean. So next time you need something, be it a pair of shoes or a sweater, or you need a new toothbrush, just see if there's a better option than the one that you were maybe going to get. So instead of getting a regular old toothbrush, just see if maybe there's one that's made from recycled plastic, or see if there's one that's made from bamboo. And it can be so overwhelming when you think, oh my gosh, I have to rethink everything in my life and all my product choices. So I just like to say, next time you need something, think of a better choice. And then also there's so many amazing organizations that people can get involved with, and really look locally, look in your backyard, look at Sharks for Kids if you're down in the Caribbean or if you're down in Florida. Look for, we just went to our local marine mammal center here in LA that honestly, I didn't even know existed until a couple of weeks ago. Look for your local animal rescue or your local animal shelter. It's the local boots on the ground. That's what we like to call people that actually do work, the actual work, put their boots on the ground. It's the local boots on the ground organizations that make a huge impact. And it also means a lot too when you get to help your community and be involved in your community. And then when you get of age, vote for politicians that support to the ocean and that support what you think is right. I don't care who you vote for, just vote for the person that you think is going to put what you care about first.
Right. So just a few questions. Thank you, Hannah. I believe Hannah's 10 now. Hannah has been on a lot of our webinars. I think she's quite a shark expert.
Hannah might have me beat.
So I believe Hannah's 10 now. She wanted to know what your favorite shark is. I know it's a tough one, and I always love to ask everybody. So what is your favorite shark?
So I will have to say, Hannah, I am a very tall person. I am almost 6 feet tall, and I wore a very special shirt today because I live in Los Angeles. So it's LA. And if you look up close, it's a take on Jaws, but really this little sharky, her teeth are all hearts. So my favorite shark is a great white because they are huge like me, and they are kind of the boss of the ocean. And what's so cool about great white sharks is we still don't know much about them. We still don't know where they give birth exactly. No one's ever caught a great white giving birth on camera. I don't know if anybody's ever seen it, or at least not that I know of. It's just so fascinating and fun in this day and age where we have so much information about so many things. It's so much fun to know that some things are still a mystery, and a lot of great white shark behavior is still a mystery. So I have to say, great white sharks.
Very cool. All right. So we have just one note. We have Mrs. B, who's a grade 4 teacher in London, Ontario. She was having some tech issues, so she is really excited to watch this. I told her that it's going to be on YouTube. So if people want to rewatch, and her whole class will be watching this once it's up on the YouTube channel. So that is great. We're so glad they were able to join, and hopefully it'll be a little bit better. They'll be able to watch it and learn as well. And then Freya, this is a really great question. So Freya, age 11, wants to know if you think that pollution, because of all the plastic, could be part of raising the sea level, because it's actually displacing the water.
You know what? That's actually that is a really good question. I've never thought of it that way. Because you're right. We're a lot of pollution, especially plastic pollution, is going into the ocean. Now, what makes plastic pollution so different than regular trash is that plastic photo degrades, right? So the sun actually can break down the plastic. It also gets broken down by just wave energy crashing against it. So one of the problems with plastic pollution in our ocean is that as it's in the ocean, it breaks down into these teeny tiny itty bitty little pieces called microplastics. And the microplastics are a big problem because we can't really clean them out because they're so small. We just couldn't go in and, like your pool skimmer, we couldn't go in and skim out all the plastic because we would also skim out all of the good things that are in the ocean. And because they are so small and kind of shiny, the microplastics, they look like plankton. And plankton is the basis of the entire ocean food web. So even technically a great white shark and a whale shark and a blue whale, the biggest creatures in the ocean, they actually rely on this tiny itty bitty things, plankton. But because microplastics look like plankton, animals don't know the difference and they start to eat the microplastics. So that means the microplastic goes into a small fish that gets eaten by a bigger fish, bigger, all the way up. And then all of a sudden now, almost all of the species in the ocean are full of plastic. So I like your thought that this plastic could be causing sea level rise, but actually the biggest contributor to sea level rise is, since the ocean's warming, because remember I said that the ocean has absorbed a lot of the excess heat, almost 90% of the excess heat in the ocean. You probably remember from science class that when things, especially water, when it heats up, it expands. So that's actually the leading cause to sea level rise, is the warming of the ocean.
It's a great thought, though, and I love seeing questions like that.
I love it. Yeah, exactly. I never thought about that.
Students are thinking critically, and Freya, Hannah, you guys are the future. You're making changes now, but also long term. And so joining and learning today, it's so important, and understanding how much you can do right now, no matter how young you are. I always say that when I'm talking to students through the webinars or just school programs, is because no matter how young you are, there's so much that you can actually do. And you gave some great pointers, more pointers in the book as well. Another question we had is, why did you choose the ocean to work with instead of another habitat? Another great question.
That is a great question. So growing up, I loved animals. I loved all animals. I mean, I wouldn't step on an ant. I loved everything. But I think it was when I met the gentleman that then became my husband, when I met Felix, and it was his passion that he had for the ocean through generations of his family. And I, in school, I took AP biology, but I don't remember really learning about the ocean in school. And so when I started learning more and more about it, and just how interesting and diverse and beautiful and different it is, I just fell in love with it. And I also thought that it's something that people don't talk about a lot. Even though it controls our weather and our water sources and our oxygen and our almost entire food system on land, people don't talk about the ocean. So I thought that it was, well, A, I loved it, and B, I thought that I could use my skills as a storyteller and a journalist and an author, and I could try to elevate the ocean and really get people talking about it and understanding it. And I like how Barbara kind of teed this up earlier, but one thing that my grandfather-in-law said, which is a famous quote of Jacques Cousteau, he said, if, more or less, if people know about something, they'll love it. So you have to educate. So education is first. You have to educate people about something for them to fall in love with it.
Yeah, it's definitely connecting. I think the more people that can have that personal connection, that story, that experience, the easier it is for them to care. Those connections create empathy, and empathy in turn creates action. And so, yeah, it's really kind of it's so important to these students, people in general, but kids as well, as an opportunity to see the ocean, experience it firsthand. And, you know, not everyone's that as lucky. Not everyone lives near the ocean. Some people will never see it, but you know, learning about it any way you can to feel that connection is really important.
Exactly. And also, even if you do live in the middle of the
That's
country,
love.
go look at your creek, go look at your local creek or your local lake or your local river. Because guess what? Usually the end spot of that is the ocean, or the water that filled that up originally started in the ocean. So always feel, even if you can't know how you're connected to the ocean, or you can't walk out your door and walk a couple blocks to it, you're still connected.
Definitely.
I have a question, and Barb, I'll turn it over to you if you have a couple. What's been one of your coolest ocean moments? You've obviously traveled, dived around the world. I've seen some amazing things, but what is one of the coolest moments, for you that you've encountered in the ocean?
Well, I have three. And the good news is I already told you guys I would say the top two. So the number one was with that big female great white off of Guadalupe Island, where we just had this moment. So that was one. And number two, when we first went to the Bikini Atoll, we got in the water and we were just surrounded by 70. I mean, it was a lot, 70 gray reef sharks swimming all around us that had never seen people before, because nobody goes out there. The island is still radioactive. That was amazing. But my other favorite story, and actually why I don't eat seafood anymore, is I was able to go scuba diving off of around the Blue Hole in Belize. And there was this one dive called the Aquarium. And again, it was a marine protected area. So it was just so much life, so many animals in this gigantic Nassau grouper came up to me, like right in my face. And when I say gigantic, I mean like 200 pounds. He was like bigger than my husband. He came up to me and he just stared at me with his like grumpy grouper face. I was like, okay. And, you know, remember everyone, you're not ever supposed to touch wildlife. Don't touch wildlife, let them be. But for some reason, I just put my hand out and he swam over and he put his chin in my hand. And my husband's watching this from the distance and I'm just like, what is happening here? And then all of a sudden the grouper started to swim away. And I was like, oh, that was an amazing interaction. And he turned back and he looked at me and I was like, I think he wants me to follow him. So I followed him. And this 200-pound grouper proceeded to take me on a tour of his reef. And he showed me, he would point out like a fish and he'd look at the fish and he'd look at me. So I'd look at the fish and then we'd swim on. And he ended up taking me inside the coral reef where there was an opening and like this like light dancing in. And it must have been his home. And that's where he slept at night. And he just showed me this and kind of looked at me and I looked at him. And then I started running low on air and I told him bye and thank you. And I will never forget that grouper. I wanted to be my friend and I wanted to be his friend. So I would say that is probably the Mr. Grouper taking me on a tour of his house was probably the most amazing thing that's ever happened to me underwater.
Very amazing. Yeah, animals are incredible. I think far more, it's not just, I think people can see their dog that knows how to do a trick or something. And so that's easy to be like that. But there's so many sharks in general are extremely intelligent and we don't give them credit. I always tell people sharks can push buttons, be trained to open boxes, swim through mazes, touch targets to be fed. I mean, they're far more intelligent than they get credit for. They're not these mindless eating machines.
Not at all.
Yeah, stories like that. It's just hopefully people realize that, how special these animals are and that we have these so special. So, all right, Barbara, I don't know if you have a couple questions you want to finish off.
I do. Ashlan, I love how you touch base because I also am not a marine biologist. They have a lot of work to do. I have the utmost respect. So they do need the public's help. They need citizen scientists as well. So I think that it's very important to let people know that, and definitely have in your book. Could you touch base a little bit though on your 30 by 30? How are there ways that citizen scientists, so to speak, can help with that, to help support that?
That is a great question. So 30 by 30, like I mentioned before, it's this huge global push to try to protect 30% of the ocean by 2030. There's also a project on land as well, but I want to specifically focus on the ocean. And so many countries have already signed up. The United States signed up for this. Jordan signed up for this. Saudi Arabia. There's countries all over the world that are signing up to support this. So number one, I would say, make sure your country has signed up. And if not, write a letter to your political leaders saying you would like them to support 30 by 30. And another thing that you can do, actually, so Earth Echo has a way that kids can get involved, and it's called Our Echo 30 by 30. And that's just on the Earth Echo website, earthecho.org/youth. And you can figure out how you can get involved with 30 by 30 by spreading awareness, because sometimes that's really what it's about, is just talking to people about 30 by 30 and how important that is. And there's also a petition right now that I have helped spearhead for Antarctica, and establishing 3 major marine protected areas in Antarctica, because the Southern Ocean, with its incredible and vital waters, it's actually what feeds almost the entire ocean system, because it's all connected, right? It's just one ocean. We say oceans, but really it's just one ocean. So there's a huge push. So you all can go and sign the petition for Antarctica 2020. You can find that in multiple places online, and really show your support for supporting the ocean. And if we do this, if we can get these 3 marine protected areas, it will be the largest act of ocean conservation in history, which is really exciting. So I would say, Our Echo 30 by 30 and Antarctica 2020 are easy ways that you all can get involved to help push 30 by 30.
Wonderful, wonderful. And one last question. Is there an area that you feel, since you've been involved in ocean conservation, you have seen the most progress made? An area that, say, was in really, really bad shape when you started with your ventures, and through the years, you have seen where it has conservation efforts have really been successful.
Yes, 100%. I think there is a very special place in Mexico called Cabo Pulmo, and it's about an hour north of Cabo San Lucas, and it was a fishing village, and a very small, very tiny fishing village. And every year, the fishermen were starting to realize that they were having to go out on their little boats farther and farther to catch fish. And some days they were catching nothing. So they're like, wait a second, I have to pay money to put, gasoline in my boat. I have to go out there farther and farther every time. And sometimes I don't catch a thing. And one day, tourists came from Cabo San Lucas, and they asked one of the fishermen to take them out so they could go scuba diving. He was like, okay, sure. And they took him out, they went down, they came back all excited. And the fisherman was like, I don't understand. Why are you so excited? What are you looking at? And they said, oh my goodness, have you never looked below the surface? He said, no, I haven't. So they gave him a mask, and he just hung off the side of his boat, and he put his eyes down, and he saw just these amazing fish and coral and colors and schools of fish that made him cry. He had a similar experience to me, and he realized we need to protect this. So he started talking to the other fishermen in the village. They came together and they went to their government, and the entire town supported this, and they established a no-take marine protected area, which means no fishing, no drilling, no nothing that could harm nature. And they just let it be. And I think it was 40 years, maybe even just 20 years, they were able to increase their biomass, which is the amount of alive stuff, by almost 400%. And the cool thing is fish don't know borders. So the fish don't know if they're in the marine protected area or out of the marine protected area. So all of the fishing outside of the marine protected area started becoming amazing. And they were able to just go out and catch what they needed to catch in a little bit of time and come back. And then they were also able, this whole town now is just a diving and snorkeling community. It's still a no-take marine reserve. And it is, I would say, one of the leading examples in the Americas of how a marine protected area can not only, increase the livelihood of the fish and of the animals that live there, but also of the people that live there too. We try to go down almost every year to go diving there. Obviously, we haven't done that in the past year and a half, but I can't wait to go down and dive and see. I mean, it'll be a school of fish that's as big as my house underwater. It's just incredible. So, and there's places like that all over, but I would say Cabo Pulmo is one of my personal favorites that I've seen the change.
Wonderful. So there are many success stories out there. We just have to implement what needs to be done in order to protect these areas. So that's fantastic to hear. Thank you so much.
Of course.
So much to everyone who joined us. Thank you for the questions. This will be on the Sharks for Kids YouTube channel, so you can watch it again, share it with friends who might not have been able to watch it. And thank you so much, Ashlan, for your time and for sharing this information with us today. We really, really appreciate it. And thank you, Barbara, for helping to host. And yeah, thank you so much. Everyone have a wonderful afternoon.
Thank you. And if we didn't get to your questions, give them to me on social media and I will try to get to them ASAP, okay?
You guys look on our website. We have links and info so you can follow Ashlan, stay up to date with what she's up to, get the copy of the book as well. So definitely do that. And thank you again for your time today.
Of course. Have a great day, everybody.